Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Milza here, and I am back with another reaction video. So, today I wanted to take a look at the Moist Critical or Penguinz0 situation. I think most people who've been on the internet know who Moist Critical is. If you don't, massive YouTuber, been doing it for a long time, one of the goats. He recently had some drama that seemed to surface around him, doing a debate with Sneeko and maybe saying some things that people didn't agree with. Whatever. I just want to kind of react to his video. He finally, I wanted to wait until his side of stuff came out. I saw a lot of people already drama baiting and making videos about the situation and everything. And I wanted to wait until his video came out and then go from there. So without further ado, we're going to get into this video. But before I do that, if you would please like, comment, and subscribe if you like this content. But yeah, let's get into it.
Heavens to Betsy, what a week, huh, sports fans? Holy Toledo. Yeah, so Moist Critical's in a big oopsie-poopsie situation here. It reminds me of the time in Moonfall when KC Houseman sacrifices himself and dies of cringe to become the moon. Yeah, so, being serious now, since this has become such a big issue, I've been in a lot of drama recently. I'm in hot water, and I'm biting on the fart bubbles that pop up in the bathtub here. It is a lot. So let's start with the most recent one today. My retirement. I didn't know I was retiring. That's news to me. I'm as shocked as all of you are. I had a ton of fun last night playing a game called Clickleding, which is basically like a cuckoldry simulator, but for clicking against like the Lorax in a hotel room. And I just did like an old school gameplay commentary video. I was bubbly, full of jubilation. I posted it today only to learn that I'm just a big old fucking liar. Liar, liar, plants for hire, I suppose. Apparently, and I didn't know this until I posted the video, everyone was under the impression that I was quitting the internet. So I started scratching at the hair on my chinny chin chin one.
Yeah, and that's what I had seen too at first, because I was like, why would he randomly quit the internet unless he's also a pedophile for some reason? Because in the past couple months, I don't know if it's something in the water at the YouTube conventions or streamer conventions, but y'all got to do better. I'm sorry, this child attractiveness, whatever it is, either get some help or don't be famous. Those two things can never, well, first off, you shouldn't be attracted to children in the first place. Second off, this is just not the business to go into. If you're going to stand behind the camera every day and think no one's going to investigate you, best believe if you weren't a pedophile, people are waiting for you to be one. But I'm going on. It's a whole other video for a whole other tangent. I might make a video about that and why that keeps happening. But anyway, let's let Charlie speak and continue.
Wondering, when the fuck did that happen? Was I sleepwalking? Do I have somnambulism? Is this some kind of Fight Club situation? But instead of Tyler Durden, I have fucking Charles Turden here that's just making wrong announcements. It turns out the patient zero behind all of this was a post Jackson made announcing that I would be leaving the podcasts, which is something I thought about periodically for quite a few months now, mainly because I started to recognize that I was becoming the very thing I'd make fun of with being chronically online. I just was always online. And the podcasts were a big proponent of that, and I just kind of wanted to scale back the amount of time I spend online. And I kept Jackson in the loop the whole time here about where my head was at. And last week I told him, hey man, I think this is going to be where I hang up the jersey. You can put it in the rafters, throw it in the dumpster, but I think I'm just going to be, sailing off into the sunset here and just reducing the amount of stuff I do online. Which he completely understood. So he made the announcement just letting people know that. And then that got spun on Twitter and Reddit as Moist Critical's taking an indefinite hiatus and quitting the internet, fundamentally. Don't know when I'll be back. He's done with the internet because of all this controversy. Patooey on his grave. He's gone. When looking at the post, I don't even know where that's coming from. It's literally just talking about the podcast and me just stepping away. It doesn't extend beyond that. I can't even wrap my tiny noodle around how anyone could perceive this as me being done with the internet entirely, but That's the story that they ran with, and that's what most people saw, not the actual post. So everyone thought I was quitting the internet, so I posted that video that I was really happy with because it just felt like an OG old school video that made me happy. And then bang! Just a flood of comments and dislikes all saying shit like, how could you fucking deceive us? I thought you quit, huh? What happened to leaving, huh? I just read this post on Twitter from an account that had a profile pic of titties photoshopped onto Thomas Edison that said you were done, and it had 50,000 likes, so I know it was true, and you're just a fucking liar. I can't even just peacefully walk away from some projects without it being a massive fucking reaction over actual nothing burger information. And trust me, no one has a palate more refined for nothing burgers than me. I have ranted about the stupidest shit of all time, but this was mind-boggling even for me. So to set the record straight, no, I'm not retiring, despite what the experts are telling you. All I did was walk away from a couple of projects. Like, that's really it. Like, that's a pretty normal thing to do, especially when one of them I've been...
You know what? That's the internet for you, though, because people are so quick to, like... And I'm saying this as a small creator now, but, like... I see so much stuff come on my feed that is just the most, like, drama baiting, like, just kind of just ridiculousness that doesn't even mean anything. People will take the smallest, like, part of a Twitter comment and then make a 30-minute long video about it as if that is the entire situation. And I guess I get it. It's almost one of those things where it's like with content creation, like you have to find ideas. And the problem with the drama part of the content creation thing is that like everyone's just farming content off of each other. So it's like everyone's just sitting there in this like pig pen waiting for the slop to drop into the pan, and they're just like waiting for, you know, just basically waiting around for any scraps they can get. Like, oh, well, I found this tweet from 3 years ago that said this, and this random commenter said that, so that must mean that this is the situation because he got 12 upvotes and this other guy only got, 10. I don't know. It is kind of tiresome, like even as a regular person and not as a huge content creator right now. As me starting out, it's like kind of like depressing to see that is like pretty much, there's a whole section of people on the internet who like are essentially talentless other than, sitting online trying to find like the nothing in something. Cause like I try to do reaction videos just because like I usually have pretty similar opinions to large creators, which is why I'm doing this in the first place. But then it's also like, it comes to a point where it just comes to a head and it's like, okay, well, like I do still make my own long form content where I have an idea about something. And obviously I will never be the first person to have an idea about something, but I want to present that idea my way and not just go off on this like kind of witch hunt for any information I can, whether it's false or unfalse. That's like I said before, though, like drama sells, man. I hate that like he's basically being like harassed by weirdos who are mad because he like, even if he wanted to quit, it'd be completely up to him if he wanted to quit. Like, who cares? Like, people on the internet are weird. Like, how are you gonna get mad at somebody because they quit? Like, if he does not owe you, like a full-on 24/7 film reel of his life. Like, yes, you put him there as a fan. You put him there as a watcher of his content. His lifestyle is literally funded by you, but that does not mean, like, he's not a person still. I don't know. That's kind of weird to me, but let's let Charlie keep going because his video is already 24 minutes and mine is going on 10 now, so let him talk for a minute, unless he says something else interesting, because I'm going to have to talk. I can't help it. I can't help
Doing for like 8 years, I really didn't think it was that deep, especially not deep enough for how big of a story it's become with all of the wild narratives running around about the true reason that I stopped doing it. So let's get into that drama. I've talked about it on stream, I don't even know how many times at this point, but we'll just talk about all of it in this video here. So, when covering the Ava Tyson situation, I was attacked by a lot of people for not being quick enough. Even though I covered it within like the first 6 hours, people were unsatisfied that I hadn't made a video within like the first fucking 20 minutes of it dropping. And then when I did finally finish the full video covering all of it, it was another massive problem where now I only did it out of an obligation because people called me out, and then I also got accused of being a transphobe because I didn't use Ava Tyson's preferred pronouns, which were she, her. I didn't know that. I thought just calling Ava Tyson by her name was okay, and I had also heard when I went to the Mr. Beast thing, someone refer to Ava Tyson with they. So I was truly under the impression that that was okay. And for that, I was annihilated by a good chunk of Twitter. And then annihilated by another good chunk of Twitter because I called out Sneeko, who was the main proponent about me covering for Mr. Beast to keep the collab alive. I wasn't talking about Ava Tyson because I wanted the Mr. Beast collab. And I talked about how absurd that statement was, especially given his history with fighting against the age of consent. He's been very vocal about how much he hates the age of consent, and so I talked about that briefly at the end of the video, which then changed the whole narrative for a lot of people where I never talked about Ava Tyson and only talked about Sneeko. So it was a complete lose-lose, because if I didn't talk about what Sneeko was saying, I would have been...
To be honest, bro, it sounds like you just need to like take a break, because like if people are that hypersensitive information, but I don't know. It says people, but I guarantee you that like out of the like probably hundreds of comments he got, most of those people are on Twitter. And for anybody that doesn't use Twitter, Twitter's not real. Twitter accounts for a small subset of the population of people who are actually active on there and like making like outrageous claims and statements. It's probably like 10% of the total human population. Probably even less than that if you consider the amount of people who actually have access to the internet. So like, I don't know why. I guess because it's like part of your business as a content creator, you have to care. And I'm sure I will someday, but it's still just like, really? Like, he didn't call this lady by her proper pronouns, and then was also being attacked because he didn't immediately come out about Mr. Beast. Like, can people wipe the crust out of their eyes and get the facts straight before they come out with a video? Or are you just supposed to just wake up in the middle of the night sensing that something is wrong and immediately start throwing accusations? I guess so, because the person is attracted to kids or whatever, right? It's okay, but like, is he not allowed to like have a life? Is he not allowed to like be a person, be human? Like, how is he supposed to be some omnipotent, all-knowing like being just because he posts videos on? I don't know. People are weird, and I really feel like the internet just makes things seem bigger than they are. Because if you got all the people who are actually mad, like in a room, it's probably like 20 people. And I don't think he cares that much, but it would definitely get on my nerves if like people are attacking me for things that are, you know, you're basically expecting me to be God at a point. Like, it's just kind of annoying.
Called a coward for not addressing it and talking about like, well, he was going to cover for Mr. Beast until Sneeko called him out. So, like, if I didn't do it, I would have been attacked. I did do it, still got attacked. It really was unwinnable. But from that spawned a conversation where I talked to Sneeko directly, because he was very upset that I was talking about how him rallying against the age of consent is pedophile arguments, like defending pedophilia. As I've said since the very beginning of this channel, I'm always willing to engage with people I disagree with, and I thought that maybe there was a chance I misunderstood what he was trying to say. Even though it's still abhorrent, I thought, okay, maybe he's not actually trying to defend pedophilia. He's like some kind of pseudo-intellectual debate bro who's trying to say something else. So I was willing to hear him out on it, and I talked to him in DMs, and he said he doesn't believe in the age of consent. He believes in the age of marriage, can't assign a number to it, but said that when someone can legally drive, they should be able to marry at the same time, which is literally like a 15 or 16-year-old, because you get your permit at 15, your license at 6.
I'll do you one better. I drove a tractor at 8 years old. I drove a Ford Ranger at 12 years old because I lived out in the country, and you can do things like that because you got a town population of like 50 people and there's nothing but straight back roads for miles. Does that mean I'm at the age of consent? That immediately gets thrown out of the window. If you have any common sense, I don't know. I don't even know how you say some shit like that and are like, oh, got you. Like, what? Whatever.
16, and both are way too young to be marrying. That shit is completely unacceptable. It is downright disgusting. He then said that he was happy to discuss it in a call, which I said I was willing to hear him out on, and he said that he would do it later because he was outside doing an IRL stream in Turkey. So I was willing to hear him out because, again, if this is some kind of crazy misunderstanding, I'd like to know that, because it'd be really fucking scary for someone in his position with his level of influence to be actually advocating for adults marrying and fucking children. That's a huge problem. That's a big fucking problem. So if there was something that he was like trying to say but failing to do so, I was willing to at least hear it. And this is where the infamous debate came from. The debate that people are calling the debate of the century. I'm kidding, not a single soul on the planet said that. It's actually one of the most dog shit debates I think human beings have ever had. He eventually called me on Discord. I was under the impression this was just him and I talking. I had no idea this was going to be a debate. I thought he was going to try and explain himself like, hey, no, this isn't actually what I meant. This is what I'm trying to say. I thought this was a conversation between him and I, not this kind of debate show that he was putting on for his audience. There is nothing in our DMs that indicated that's where it was going. When I joined the call, he asked if I was going to record it, to which I said, I can if he wants me to, but I was also down to just talk. So I thought maybe he wanted it as a recording to like explain to people like, no, he's not actually a pedophile defender or advocating for that kind of thing. So I thought that is why he asked. I didn't know it was because it was being streamed, especially because one of his last DMs was about how he's doing an outside IRL stream and he would call me after. To me, that says when he's done streaming, that's when we'll talk, not as a part of his stream. I didn't know this was a debate nor a stream until about an hour and 40 into it, roughly somewhere in that ballpark. I am not a debater. I've never claimed to be one. I never want to be a...
I hate people who like to debate shit because 9 times out of 10, they don't actually want to discuss the issues that you have with them or that you got that are the main topic of what you're trying to talk about. They love to sit there and just like throw debate terms at you, like instead of like, oh well, I'm not even gonna listen to what you said because that was a red herring, or that was a logical fallacy, or that was that's not a debate. If I wanted to go to a court case, I would say, hey, let's go meet up at jury duty and talk about the efficacies of law and like all this kind of retarded like jargon that basically can turn what someone's saying into something immediately incorrect without listening to the words because of how it was presented, which all really ends up boiling down to its technicality, because all of the terms in debates that you can use to debunk somebody are pretty much just technicalities of word choice and word play, right? Like, it's not actually like, oh, like the sky is blue. Oh, well, that's logical fallacy because you didn't look up. Like, okay, does that invalidate what I said? No. So like, I hate when people are like, oh, I want to debate. Like, it's so fucking stupid. Like, you're not debating because you can list off a bunch of ways that somebody's wrong because of a theorem or whatever the fuck it is in debating. Like, it's just, that's not an argument. Like, if you're arguing something, you're trying to find the right, wrong, and gray areas of the situation. It's really that simple. But of course, this being Sneeko, right? Like, he's just like, oh, I've got to be like, the Alpha Bro Tate guy, but I don't know. And here, like, Moist Critical is just like sitting here, just like trying to be reasonable. Like, hey, like you didn't mean that like 15 and 16-year-old kids should be getting married, like especially like 15 and 16-year-old girls should be getting married, right? And potentially being sexually assaulted, right? No, I meant that. Okay.
A debater. I've always said that I believe conversations are the most productive because debates always devolve into what side can score the most points by explaining their thought process, even if the position is wrong.
Literally.
Whereas a conversation is a very different thing to me. So I didn't even know that's what this was. So obviously, I was unprepared for a fucking debate. So I entered into the Thunderdome and we started talking. I made it clear that I found his statements on the age of consent and children marrying adults being fucking hideous. Absolutely revolting. And then he started arguing about, well, what is a child? We must define a child, you know. It's not actually being under 18. It's all a bunch of hooey. And I really think if you have to start arguing about, well, what technically is a child, you're already way too far gone.
You're already
that is so
wrong.
fucking weird. And in no uncertain terms, multiple times throughout the debate, Sneeko says that he is okay with people that are aged 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 marrying adults that are 18 or older.
We're talking globally. Let's just talk globally. Like, do you think it is okay for, I'm not talking about just you specifically anymore, anyone. Do you think it's okay for anyone in their 20s, an adult, to marry a 15 or 16-year-old?
A 21-year-old, if there was a marriage where the father consented and the daughter consented, and it was both good on both families and they wanted to do it, why am I going to get involved? Why should we get the government involved?
Even get back a little bit. Do you think there's not a problem with a child being with an adult?
Okay. We haven't even agreed upon what a child and an adult is. You keep saying that it's 18.
Under 18 is child.
And I'm
What are
telling
you saying?
That's not even the definition of the word.
What are you? We're talking about the definition of what a child is. You know what a child is. Like, I hate that, like, intellectual dishonesty where people try to act like they don't know something for the sake of being right. Like, come on, bro. Like, you know. And he knows. But this is like the character he's playing, right? Like, where we just say outlandish shit. I don't know. It's honestly making me mad. Like, how in the world do you sit up here and, like, try to argue? Like, this is literally the reason why they shut down, like, church organizations, like, certain LDS groups and all that, like, stuff like that. Because, like, there's whole documentaries of them marrying 14 and 15-year-olds who have been being groomed and brainwashed. Like, you've only been alive 15 years if you're a 15-year-old girl. You've probably only really been conscious for like 5 or 6 of those years, right? How in that little span of time have you figured out who you want to marry, who you are, what you want to be when you grow up, but you can get married because you somehow consented at the behest of your father? Get the fuck out of here.
What is the number? There needs to be a number, or else you can do the same thing.
I just told you there's not a number.
Do you see why that's a problem?
No.
If there's no defined...
Like, he's smart. Like, he
so
knows
why
this
can't
is
a
like
12-year-old
bullshit.
marry an 18-year-old?
Because most 12-year-olds haven't gone through puberty yet. And most 12-year-olds...
What if, as you just said, it changes. What if a 12-year-old went through puberty early, the parents consent, the 18-year-old and the parents consent? Can they do it?
Girls can have their period as early as, like, 9. Like, what do you... Oh, my God. Like, what do you... Like... I hate the internet makes certain people famous. Like, here I am trying to be famous because I, like, actually enjoy this and, like, need... Well, first off, I'm not gonna lie, I need money. But I also enjoy this. Then you got, like, people like this asshole who are famous for basically just being ignorant. Like, okay.
Most likely that's not going to happen. You know why? Because Islamically, if
we're not talking most likely, just say it.
If the families have consented, the kid is mature, the kid is ready. Why should I stop
At 12 years old. At 12 years old.
If the kid is physically mature,
He's doubling
the parents
down.
consent, both parties are happy.
Put him in a
12-year-old
coffin.
being physically mature.
He's doubling down.
That's the
Put him
only.
in a coffin.
That's the only line that actually makes sense.
Putting himself
And
in
I
a
don't
coffin.
think a 14-year-old can ever be physically mature.
Even though they literally can. Even though puberty actually defines that, it's fine.
I don't. Nope.
No.
I don't believe so. I was 14 once. I actually had a mustache when I was 14. Would you have looked at me and said I was physically mature enough to get married?
If you were physically mature, if you were mature, yes, I would. Okay.
Really? When I was 14.
If you were 14 and you were ready to go and you met another 14-year-old, yes, I would.
No.
What are you saying?
You keep going back to that.
That is adult.
I met.
I told you my definition. I told you the
14-year-old
definition.
adult.
The definition.
Okay.
If you went through puberty, you're an adult. That's the definition of adult. So yes, if you're an adult and you had a mustache, you're ready to get married, fine. Okay.
Unironically saying a 14-year-old adult, I think, would make most sensible people want to puke. There's so many instances of this, and a lot of the conversation was spent with him talking about like overseas age of consent, like talking about how Japan's age of consent was 13 for the longest time, this and that. But the whole thing was like pulling teeth, and it was fucking painful. And I think it's extremely alarming perspective to have. Unironically calling a 14-year-old and 12-year-old mature enough for a marriage, those are middle schoolers. Like, holy shit. I think that is extremely concerning to be advocating for something like that. Like, would Sneeko be okay if his best friend ended up marrying a 14-year-old? He certainly shouldn't be. No one should be okay with something like that. Like, that's fucking terrible. That is actually terrible.
It's disgusting.
But now, since I wasn't, like, holding him to this topic or making sure it stayed on the topic I thought we were talking about, it went all over the place with a ton of different things. But the big one, and this is what most people have focused on, which was my response to his question about kids transitioning. And the way he would pose that question would be by asking if I thought it was okay if kids who want to switch their gender go to the doctor and get their dick cut off. Is it okay if a 9-year-old goes to a doctor and gets their cock cut off right then and there?
Like, bro, what is he supposed to say to that? Like, everybody who sees this video or watches my video knows with a shadow of a doubt there was a period of time where if you said anything about trans people negative at all, you might as well have cut your own head off because the PR damage was that bad. Even saying something now that would be slightly negative, even if you say, hey, you don't think kids should be introduced to an idea that they may or may not even have yet because they haven't experienced enough life to reach that decision on their own. That's a divisive topic in the LGBTQ plus community on its own. And then you ask him this question, and we'll hear his answer. But I don't think he answered it bad. Like, I feel like he answered it the best you can. Like, what else is he supposed to say? You know he's a big, influential person. He can't come out and say, like, a right or a wrong answer. He has to give a flat answer. And I think he did that.
And when posed with that question, I replied with yes. And I've talked about this on stream many, many times now, and I'll talk about it again here. I thought he was talking in hyperbole. I thought he was just exaggerating, being over the top, talking about the entire subject of transitioning. I had no idea that any living, breathing human being actually thought that that's how transitioning works. Where you just go into a doctor saying, I feel like switching genders, and they lay you down on the operating table and just snip your whole fucking meat off.
Nope.
I didn't know that that's what he actually believed. I didn't know he was speaking literally. I thought he was just referring to the entire process of transitioning and just using this over-the-top statement to encapsulate all of it. Because you literally cannot get that surgery unless you are 18. Like, you actually have to go out of your way to be that stupid on the topic than you would just spending a couple of seconds looking it up. Yep. There are very rare cases where someone under 18 has had that surgery performed. That's not common. So I really didn't think that someone could be so dumb on the topic. I thought he was just speaking in hyperbole, which is my mistake. I should have been more clear instead of making an assumption that he was talking about something nuanced in an over-the-top way. I haven't hid this take, and it's not a new take from me. I've talked about this a couple times throughout the years on stream. I have no complaints if a kid gets interested in transitioning and starts talking to their family about it. So their parents start talking to doctors, the kid starts talking to doctors and therapists and all of this, because the process of transitioning is one that takes place over the course of many years. It's not something that just happens like that. And I'm also not afraid to admit that I am not the most educated when it comes to transitioning. I am not someone that has a ton of knowledge about the subject to be speaking on it in a really in-depth manner. But even I know these very surface level things that everyone has easy access to understand. It is a long process. And I have no problems at all if a kid gets interested in that process and starts going through that process with proper care. And then when they reach the age where they can consider that surgery and decide they want to do it, then that's all power to them. That's entirely up to them. They have reached that age. They can now do that surgery if they want to. That is not a surgery that's being offered to like a 9-year-old who just says, I feel like changing genders today. It's just not how it works. And I didn't think that that's what was actually being discussed because it's so fucking silly. Now, I'm sure there's some really fringe cases you can point to where that kind of thing did happen, but it's not common. Thus,
There aren't that many. They aren't common. You have to take a bunch of meds. You have to do a bunch of different procedures and tests to make sure you aren't going to reject the estrogen or testosterone or whatever they put you on. It is honestly probably one of the most invasive things you can do, which is why the age that you can actually even have it happen is so high. Gives you a chance for your frontal lobe to get a little bit more developed, you know, so that you can get off social media, get off whatever, and kind of make up in your mind what it is that you actually want to be, because it is extremely invasive. Anybody with a brain knows this. Obviously, it's not Sneeko, which I'm sure he's going to try to somehow say that, oh, Moist Critical's advocating for mutilating babies. Like, okay, bro. Like, this is gross negligence of your platform, and you're, like, just, for you to be as well known as you are, you need to be educated on things if you're going to talk about them. Because the things that you say are basically through a megaphone now. So you have a duty as a creator and as a influencer with an audience that's probably mostly kids screaming Sigma Skibbity Toilet. You have a obligation to them to be as factual as possible in things that you say. So now we have to waste time listening to your like garbage argument about what he said was terrible.
I didn't think that's what was being referred
So
to in the conversation.
Just dumb.
And it is, again, my mistake for not recognizing that at that moment it was being spoken about literally. So all that shit that people keep dogpiling and spouting about me about how I want all kids to go out there and get their genitals chopped off is just fucked up. Like, it's so ridiculous. I recognize I did a horrible job of arguing in this debate, which isn't surprising considering I don't debate. This is not something that's in my skill set, which of course led to some embarrassingly dog shit arguments. Like the one I've seen people reference a couple times is when I briefly mentioned sports in this topic. It was a stupid point to try and make. I was getting hit by like some rebound psychic damage listening to some of the drivel brain rot that Sneeko was spouting about the age of consent. And I don't know why I thought this was like an argument to try and make, but I brought up sports in this subject, and I was going to try and elaborate on it, but didn't at all. What I was going to try and say is that when a kid gets interested in a sport, they'll talk to their parents about it, they'll research the sport, you know, go through the process of learning about it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to transitioning, it's still a process where you talk to your family about it, you learn about it. Like, it wasn't a point where I was trying to say, well, changing genders is a lot like picking between baseball
and that's
soccer.
Obvious, but
like, it's
drama
not what I was
baiters
trying to get at, but because I didn't elaborate on it and it really wasn't a good argument to try and make in the first place, that's one people have harped on a lot. And I get it. Like I said, I am not a debater. Like, I didn't go in here expecting a debate. So I had nothing prepared here for this inundation of outrageous questions and tangents. Like, there was a point where Sneeko was trying to get me to say white power. Like, the whole thing was a fucking mess. It was, without a doubt, probably the worst debate that video has ever been cursed with. And I really regret not doing a better job here. It's not something I should have even done in the first place. I just have a tendency to really hope for the best out of people. And I was really hoping that I and most people were wrong about Sneeko's perspective on the age of consent. However, unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be the case. He was very adamant about this position, and I did a terrible job in arguing with him, and I did a terrible job of articulating my beliefs. I am supportive of the LGBTQ+, and I have been, and that's not something I've been shy about. I just wish I did a better job of expressing that. To be open and honest here, and I've talked about this a lot, I've always treated my channel kind of like a diary for myself, which is why I just talk about so much different nonsense and so many things that I know a lot of people don't give a fuck about, but some of it's fun for me to talk about, or some of it's just things I care about. So being totally honest, I used to treat the internet as an escape from my dog shit real life. Truly unhappy, really hated most of everything about myself, and the internet was my escape from it. But now it's really become that real life is the escapism for me now. Like, I love posting and creating things, but I don't like interacting with the internet around me anymore. And it's something that I started to realize a couple months ago, and I've talked about it on stream a little bit, how because I've covered so many like drama stories and everything, it's pretty much all that I ever get told about when I'm streaming, and it's become such a massive headache, and it's just constant negativity that I'm fully flooded with.
Because negativity sells, and I hate it for him, but it's also like you kind of did it to yourself, because it's like, you know, as well as everybody else knows, that if you cover something, it's going to get 1 million views in 3 hours. So it's like, on one hand, yeah, like negativity sucks, but it's like that's most of your content. Not saying you don't play games, not saying you don't do stuff other times, but most of the stuff, like even before like I was watching his stuff, like most of his content was him exposing somebody on the internet for being a doofus or being the donkey of the day, however you want to call it. Like, it was basically that. And when you build, like, you know, a pretty solid core base of people who are ready for you to rip people's heads off, that's all they want you to do. I think Asmongold has said this best. Like, he said it like, when you get into this business, like you have to know your audience and know what they want. And the second you deviate from that, you're going to have problems. And that sounded like a part of his problem in the beginning, but a part of it too is just like, again, like if you build something on something negative, eventually it's going to come back around to you. And in his case, it's coming back around to him in the sense of that, like the place that used to be a safe place for him to have fun and be more of himself and escape, the kind of, I don't want to say perils, but the kind of just moodiness of real life where you just kind of get bogged down from responsibilities. And, if you don't have a great life or a great career and all that stuff, it can suck. I'm not afraid to admit that. Like, there have been times when my life sucked, and the internet was my escape. Namely, YouTube was my escape, right? But it's like, there's so many weird people on the internet who, because they're this faceless, account, they feel empowered, and they would never say or do have things they say online unless someone would pay them to do it. And then as an influencer, you get paid to kind of say and do what you want within the realm of, reason and PR damage. And unfortunately, in this case, the negativity that sold is pushing you out. I hope this isn't going to end with him being basically I don't want to do this anymore, which, I mean, that may be the case. And I wouldn't be mad at him. But I don't think he's very replaceable. So, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to be the black version of Moist Critical, but yeah, I don't think I'd ever replace him per se, because I'm black. Like, people don't really like black people, but it is what it is. Maybe that negativity was what will boost me up, that people just genuinely have a inclination to dislike black people. Some reasons I could see why in pop culture you would assume that we're all bad. Other reasons are completely made up. But that's a topic for a different video. And disclaimer, I'm not saying I have a problem with black people, because I'm black, duh. So no one try to come for me. Anyway, back to the video.
At all hours, I am in this human centipede of eating someone's ass while having my ass eaten with even more things that I'm being demanded to talk about, where everything just feels like a lose-lose, and it has been for the last 6 or 8 months, I feel, where if I talk about something, it's a problem. Even if something is cut and dry as Cody Ko having sex with a 17-year-old being bad, I caught a lot of shit for that too. I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't see that, but man, the amount of emails I got and a lot of the things I was seeing, Even something as cut and dry as that was an issue when I talked about it. And then if I don't talk about something, or if I don't talk about something fast enough in the time that some people think is appropriate, I'm then accused of covering up for something for an ulterior evil motive. So it just really feels like a rock and a hard place where, regardless, it's just going to be a massive...
Yeah, but fuck them. Like, they're not, like, they're basically NPCs. They're not even real at that point. If they would even assume that you're covering for them. Which, I mean, it's like, I guess we can't put anybody past anything, but, like, just, I mean, like, who cares? Like, they're not even real people after a while. At least not to me.
Flood of negativity. And a huge critique of me that I've always seen.
More so if you're being negative. I'm not saying people who are being positive, like, you're cool. But people who are being negative and, like, weird online and, like, would never say it to your face, like, you're an NPC, bro. Like, be real.
Is Charlie's a fence sitter. He's just a fucking fence sitting enlightened centrist cuck, this and that. And I've always said for the entire time I've been on the internet, I'm not special. I'm literally just a normal guy who got very lucky. I just sit here, joke about shit, talk about my opinion on things, and nothing else. I don't have a unique perspective on things. I don't have deep insight into the vicissitudes of certain things. I am literally just a guy who yaps, has some fun, talks about shit, does some wacky stuff as well, and that's it. It's just not that deep. But because everything is so inflammatory and charged online, it's being perceived in the last 2 years, it's really popped off as me making deliberate attempts to appease both sides and play right down the middle to soak up as much as possible. Like, it's all this, like, nefarious scheme where I'm doing this with my hands. And I just don't understand how it's become so incendiary, where that's apparently, like, a really bad thing now. My opinion is not special, and my opinion isn't one that's pandering to any sides or catering to anything. It's literally just whatever's up here. I sit down for like 30 to 45 minutes on like a topic or like a video that I'm joking around about, and I talk about it. I am legitimately just an average, well, below average height guy who's about to turn 30. I'm not just spitting hot takes out the wazoo here. I'm just being myself. That's all this channel ever has been. And now it's become super controversial to do that if it's not like, picking sides on everything, it seems. And it's very frustrating. For the longest time, it was just me having fun. And for the most part, it still is. But I've started to recognize over the last few months that some of the things I do just really aren't fun for me to do, and I've been doing them out of obligation. Mainly internet drama. When I initially started covering drama so many years ago now, it was fun, because it wasn't as serious. Like, the stories were a lot, more quirky. It was easy to get invested because it was kind of just like a soap opera, like a really dumb soap opera. But recently it's been much more serious, and I feel the need to talk about these things because a lot of them are extremely serious with very important topics to discuss. But it has become draining. As much as I never wanted to admit it, I've started to recognize that my mood is immediately impacted by whatever I read on Twitter in the morning. If that's some horrible stuff about a creator or what have you, it immediately affects my entire day and my whole outlook on the day. Now I know, call the wambulance, get some french fries, just fucking whining about having to talk about drama. What a stupid problem to be upset about. But I'm just trying to explain that it hasn't been as fun recently. It hasn't. And the main thing, if you've been around the channel for a while, is I've always wanted this to be fun and never feel like a job. And as hard as it is for me to admit this, a lot of this kind of stuff, it has just started to feel like less fun and more of, well, gotta do this because I'm expected to. Like, anytime I go live, most of chat is just telling me about the latest in whatever's happening in the creator space or some
because
other
they're
like,
weird,
extremely
like,
negative
who
thing going
cares,
on. It's
bro?
like, okay, well, I'm going to have to learn all about that once I turn stream off. So then I spend a few hours learning about these things, and it's all just really upsetting stuff. Like, it's not happy. It's all very sad, bad stuff. And it's been making me not happy. So I definitely think I'll be slowing down on covering internet-related drama or, like, drama in general. I'll still talk about, like, really wacky stories and shit like that, but I definitely think I'm gonna be pumping the brakes on like the kind of drama I have been covering recently.
Please do.
And instead, I'm gonna go back to focusing on the content that I'm most happy with. Like, if you ask me what content I'm most proud of throughout my entire time on this platform for the last like 17, 18 years, none of it would be drama coverage. It'd be things like Skynut. It'd be things like shooting a potato at a tennis racket to see if you can make French fries in midair by frying them in hot oil. It's shit like that. And I think I'm going to go back to that kind of stuff as opposed to the direction that I have been going recently. So, yeah, this was a lot to go over here, but I hope this has cleared everything up. And, yeah, that's really about it. So, yeah.
Well, guys, you heard it from the man himself. People are weird. And I made a video about this. Well, I didn't make a video about it, but I talked about it briefly in a video where there's so many weird people on the planet, especially on the internet, who there's so many just weird people who think that you have to be on the side of something for your opinion to matter. Like, there is no reason why you should always want to be the source of division. Like, why? Like, are you so unhappy with your own life that the only thing that brings you some joy is being a part of some type of division? Like, I don't know. I really hate that's where people have come to. Like, you got to the point where, like, a guy who has arguably, in my opinion, one of the best jobs in the world doesn't even want to talk to people anymore because it's such a thing for him to not say yes, yay or nay to something. Like, come on. I think as a community, as a YouTube community, we have to do better. I think as people, we have to be better. And just overall, like, I think the internet needs to go back to the way it was, where we stop caring so much about the comments and the backlash from things that are said, especially if it's something minor, and we just let it be a place of creativity again. But thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm gonna keep doing more content like this, so if you like it, please smash those buttons down there. I really appreciate it. But without further ado, that's been it. You heard the man. Milza out.